we'll get into more so in the next segment, Iran and your work and how that interacts there. But people don't often think of Iran as somewhere that is also having an awakening of humanity. But Iran is experiencing it. Obviously, it's being experienced in full force in France, America, sort of the leader on that, Brexit. So this is a worldwide division between those who are awakened and those who are asleep, right?
I think so. I think it is you could look at it spiritually. I don't think there's ever been a time in recorded history where we've experienced this, where it seems like in mass the people are waking up to the tyrants. I don't think that's ever happened, at least in the past 6,000 years.
Right. It's happened in individual places, but we really are seeing a worldwide awakening. It's like I keep referring to it as a worldwide civil war, because it's like all of these countries are experiencing this, fractionization or fracturing between two sides, but these two sides are like the same in every country.
Yeah.
The globalist versus the nationalist, or the humans versus the machine.
I would say individual freedom versus collectivism. Collectivism is just a fancy word for enslavement, really, because to not allow an individual soul to follow their own heart and follow their own path and form their own personal relationship with God and live their life accordingly is the ultimate crime, I would say, to take that from someone.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's so funny. It's like not only do we here at Infowars, like, I don't know, people accuse us of being like in an echo chamber and stuff, but what I love about bringing on Infowars reporters like you or like Jake, it's like we all have different ways of looking at things, and that's what I so appreciate your view, because you always take this very spiritual view of it. And of course, we have David Knight. He always takes like the liberty. He breaks it down to its most basic forms. Like, is it support liberty or does it bring liberty down? You tend to focus on, or that's just sort of your mindset, is you're very spiritual, and you recognize and can sense the spirituality that's being awakened here. Is that what brought you to like doing what we're doing here now, or how did
absolutely
that
absolutely
play into it?
So before I came to Infowars, I was living at an ashram in a temple for about 3 years, close to 3 years. I worked at the ashram, and then from like 5 p.m. to 10 in the morning, I was the only person for like 2 miles living alone in this temple. It was extraordinary. And I accomplished a great deal of spiritual work and stuff. But near the end of that, where I guess you could say I found peace within myself or whatever, that is when the next chapter started opening up. That's when I started seeing Trump fighting globalists.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. From all over the world, especially to our friends in Iran. It is late in the evening there, and we welcome you and thank you for tuning in. We know we have fans all over the world, and we do love you all. I just want to say that outright. And so, Greg, what has been your journey through this interaction you've had with Iranian citizens, these Persians that have really gravitated to your work? Just what has been succinctly your timeline and how this got started and where we are today?
Well, it's interesting because it picks up at the very last question. You were asking the inspiration to come to Infowars. And so during the exact same time, I was on my knees asking to somehow find a way to help out America in this incredible time, or the world even in this incredible time. That was around Christmas time of 2017 going into 2018. Around that same time, I remember the Iranian uprisings. And it was so moving, I guess is the word to use, inspiring. And the fact that the mainstream media was ignoring it, and it was, to me, that was one of the first times. This is before what we're seeing in Paris. And this is the first time I think I ever saw something like it, where it looked like an actual, authentic, everyone's up in the street saying we're sick of this. And something about that just made me think, wow, Iran. And then I kept thinking about Iran. I kept thinking about Iran for all the way up until July when I started working at Infowars. And then within my first month of Infowars, I was still thinking about Iran. So I said, I'm going to do an article on Iran. And there was a couple of spies. They just came up in the news again. And after that article, I started getting contacted by Restart on Twitter, hundreds, to the point where I got curious. And I was like, all right. So I started contacting them back, replying to them, and they started filling me in. And next thing you know, we went to California to interview their leader.
And so what is Restart exactly for people that don't know?
Restart is a populist movement in Iran that was started a few years ago by a Seyed Mohammad Hosseini, who used to be a TV personality. He's a bit like Trump. He's not a billionaire, but he was famous. He was a loved character. When the regime tried getting him to turn political, that's when he left and came to America and ended up forming Restart. And he was getting millions of downloads. He's a lot like Alex Jones as well. He does podcasts out of California now, and he educates his movement like an Infowars audience. I would say the Restart people are as educated, if not more so, than our audience. I mean, they're keen. They know who to trust here in America, even, and who the deep staters are. They know who the swamp creatures are. It's extraordinary. In many ways, they're just like us, I would say. They're dealing with the exact same problems. They're getting censored in Iran as well. They call it Restart because they want a complete restart. They don't want to reform the government. They don't want any Islamic rule. They want separation of church and state. They want freedom of speech. They want the right to bear arms. So they want a complete restart, drafting a constitution. I think they want 5 political parties to choose from. And they want to do it peacefully. They want to do it through knowledge and educating people. At first, I remember thinking, in my head, I'm like, you can't do it like that. And I remember I was contacting them. But that's what they want. And now that I'm seeing what's happening in Paris, I'm starting to question that now. Like, if enough of us stand up and say we want this, then
what are they going to do?
What are they going to do?
How can they fight back against it?
Right.
Oh, it's amazing. So what has been the effect now that you have brought eyes? Because, the thing about Iran, you talk about, I've been thinking about Iran. It's like there's such a dearth of information about Iran coming, into American media. I mean, anything that does come in is totally skewed and politicized to favor the neocons and all this sort of stuff. So it's like most Americans have no even concept of what Iran is. So it's hard enough to get that information. Now here you are, an American at an American media company making something that speaks for the Iranian people. What was their reaction to that? And what has been the effect of you bringing American eyes and Iranian eyes to this Restart movement?
Well, it's been very personal, I guess you could say. I mean, I have spent a lot of time studying different traditions of spirituality, and theirs is primarily Sufi, which is one that I didn't really look into all that much. I knew about the poet Rumi and Hafiz, and these are like their teachers. And so Sufi is all about love. Sufi is about praising God through your actions, through loving each other, through dance, through music. And so throughout this whole time, I've been in contact with about a dozen members, plus the leader. Personally, I've fallen in love, not just with their culture and their passion, but their vision for Restart. They think of Restart as a global thing, not in the sense of globalism, but in the sense of that the entire world is waking up and the entire world wants to be free. And it's like what we were talking about earlier off the air, that there seems to be almost, or on the air, I can't remember, there seems to be a civil war globally happening. And so what they're saying by Restart is the whole world needs to restart. That's kind of one of the things they say.
But has the information that you're putting out, has it been spread around Iran? Is Iran is it being
yes, we recently
in Iran or censored?
Well, we recently did an article on Infowars where there are members of the Besieged and there are members of the Revolutionary Guard that are in Restart. So there's spies. Wow. And there was a leaked memo recently that was going around the regime that mentioned Infowars in it, and it was saying that basically we successfully silenced Restart for 2 years, and now they went on an Infowars, American media company Infowars, for an interview, and now they're getting all kinds of press.
Wow!
And so the memo was basically saying it's urgent if you see anything about this group to silence it and to just stop it right away. And so, yes, it's amazing, and it's also amazing that we seem to be the only outlet covering it.
Right.
And even some of the comments I read in our videos challenge us, saying that we are warmongering, and these might be trolls, but if you really just look into, anyone who looks into Iran, I think, would recognize that they have a rich history of freedom and individualism, probably more so than anyone else, and what they've been putting up with for 40 years is not just extremely oppressive, but it's it's kind of new for them.
Right. Right. And I know one of the things that you talked about with the leader that you interviewed was this idea of how similar George Washington was to, like, was it like Hammurabi or something? It's like this ancient Persian leader that his code and you know what he stood for was like a very modern idea of separation in church and state. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, Cyrus the Great.
It was Cyrus, okay.
Was the first Persian empire.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, you could say it was almost just like the American Constitution, except I believe the only difference was I think the Cyrus Empire, all the freedoms were granted by Cyrus the Great and the empire, so by the government.
Right, they didn't have the sort of Christian underpinning there.
Right, so if that would be my one suggestion to restart when they draft their Constitution is make the rights granted by God.
Right.
Because even if you're an atheist, it's a bit of a brilliant little check right there. So
right, to say it doesn't come from man, it comes from
Yeah.
God. And that's so interesting because, you know, you have all these connections where people are saying that Trump is Cyrus reborn and all this stuff. Because Cyrus was a good guy, especially in the Bible, because his rule and his governance actually allowed the Jews to live there and practice their own religion. That was his, you know, contribution, was this freedom of religion that he was able to bring out. Really incredible stuff, folks. If you don't understand this, it's like Infowars, we are making a difference. We are helping to bring about and helping to support all these people around the world that are engaged in this global revolution and the reawakening of humanity. More with Greg Reese on the other side. Stay with us, folks. All right, folks, welcome back.
Analyzing the globalists' next move. It's the David Knight Show.
Harrison Smith sitting in for David Knight with Greg Reese, Infowars reporter, talking a lot about Iran. The last segment, we're going to move on to more local politics. And first, we're going to go to this report by Darren McBreen about the speech we aired yesterday, Jim Jordan on, I believe, the House floor, giving this speech. Let's go to it now.
Today's left has taken the most radical positions in American history. They applaud Kaepernick when he disrespects the flag. They embrace Governor Cuomo when he says America was never that great.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great.
And they cheer on Maxine Waters when she says go out and harass anyone who supports the president.
If you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Today's left thinks that America's just another country. Just one of the 190-some countries on the planet. The United States of America is not just another country. It's the greatest nation in history that has done more good for more people than any country ever. A special place where people from all over the world, all shapes, all sizes, all colors, all talents come to so they can chase down their goals, chase down their dreams, make life better for themselves and their family. That's this country. A special place where people come and respect the Constitution, cherish the Bill of Rights, and embrace the rule of law. Democrat Congressman Blumenauer said, abolish ICE. Secretary Clinton, when she was running for the highest office in the land, said we need a borderless hemisphere.
We've learned from the WikiLeaks that you said this, and I want to quote, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders.
I will continue speaking out for comprehensive immigration reform. I think the people who are here deserve a path to citizenship.
Speaker Pelosi said walls are immoral.
A wall is an immorality.
Just last week, Stacey Abrams, governor candidate in the state of Georgia, said non-citizens should be able to vote. Think about that.
So in some cases you would be supportive of non-citizens voting?
I wouldn't oppose it.
She wouldn't oppose it. Sounds like she is open to non-citizens voting in local elections.
Americans believe that borders need to be strong. Americans believe, we believe, that there's a difference, a big difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. And Americans and Republicans in the House Freedom Caucus believe that a border security wall will help stop the drug problem, the gang problem, and the human trafficking problem.
Wow. Incredibly powerful stuff from Darren McBreen. You can find that video at Infowars.com. Powerful speech already from Jim Jordan, made more powerful by those visuals and by the references that he's making, it really puts into stark relief just how insane the left is, just how bat crap crazy these people have gone. I mean, I don't know whether to laugh or arm myself. I don't know. Greg Reese, will you take it away?
I'm not a prophet, and I don't think I've ever tried making any predictions, but before I left the ashram about a year ago, I was telling my good friend there that I worked with, I said, mark my words, next year they're taking the mask off.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing they have left is just come out of the closet and be like, this is who we are. And I don't know if we're exactly there yet, but we're close. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they start running on Luciferianism.
Right.
I would not be surprised.
No, I mean, I think the mask is totally off to the point that, like, all of the stuff that Infowars has been saying for so long, they're just coming out and being like, yeah, that's what we're doing. I mean, I have so many stories here that show exactly that. Not even in the political realm. You have Vice, newspaper that used to be like anti-corruption, anti-tyranny sort of style, at least. Now they're showcasing French people who got sterilized to save the world. So they're basically celebrating people who have sterilized themselves. They just come out as a cult of death and a cult of anti-humanity. And they're basically saying, hey, accept this or be destroyed. And it seems to me like, and we've talked about it on the show over and over, they got to a point where Donald Trump was elected, Brexit was happening, they saw their castle crumbling around them. They had two choices. They could either sort of take the loss and retreat a little bit and try to regroup and maybe come at it again a different way, or they could just go pedal to the metal, full bore. It looks like they've decided to go pedal to the metal, full bore. This is it.
Yeah, I would say so. And to me, that tells me, that looks like victory for us, because that looks like they have no plan and they're absolutely desperate and they don't know what to do. Whereas when you look at Trump's agenda, not just Trump's agenda, but what's happening other places in Brazil, you see a very calculated, calm strategy being deployed,
right,
as the opponents are freaking out. And what's amazing is that people aren't, like you said, the left is acting exactly how, like, not just Infowars, but even like how David Icke, and he can get out there, is talking about, and the people that are asleep still don't see it. It's unbelievable.
It is totally crazy. That's what you talk about, Luciferianism or Satanism. It's like, it's so bizarre to me, this juxtaposition between, like, I almost want to do a skit or something where I'm a socialist candidate and I'm like, you know, there's so many problems with this world, and we need to understand what those problems are, and there's something at the root of it, and we need to figure out what that is and get rid of it. Anyway, here's the new statue to Satan in front of the courthouse. Yeah. You know, and it's like they're so blind. It's like, here you are literally worshiping Satan, and on the other hand going, why is everything so backwards?
I think a huge trick that they're playing, that these wizards are playing, and they've always played, is on our psychology. I was thinking of a movie from the year 2000 called Chopper. And it's a movie about a real Australian criminal who wrote an autobiography in jail. And he's a bit of a brutal person. And there's a scene in that movie where he kills another prisoner. And as the prisoner's dying, he starts experiencing sadness and regret and remorse. And he's begging for forgiveness. And he's almost crying. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. Why'd you make me do that? And when you're watching it, you actually start to feel bad for this brutal killer, even while the victim is still bleeding out on the floor. You can feel your mind or your heart being like, oh my God, look, he feels bad. And that's kind of what we're experiencing by the globalists, the New World Order, is smiles and apologies while they're doing all, you know, like toxic masculinity is bad. So if you act brutish, that's bad. But if you do brutish things with a smile on your face, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Then people like feel bad for you. And it's amazing.
Total manipulation and wizardry. I love that. Was that Owen Benjamin? Did he start that?
I think so. He kind of brought the whole wizardry thing out, and he's right.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what the occult is. The occult is a bunch of nonsense lies, like the Jedi mind trick. That's basically occult science in a nutshell. The Jedi is how to lie to someone and keep a straight face.
Yeah, and it's totally, I mean, to me, it's their system is one of death. Their system is one of control, which does not compute with humanity. Humans, like, I'm sorry, we can't be controlled. I mean, you can to a certain point. If you get the chemicals in, if you drain us of our will, if you put in, you know, the chip that stops you from doing things that Mark Zuckerberg has created, insanity, just insane what's going on in the world right now. So you can do it, but I have to believe in humanity. I have to believe in the human spirit and believe that when we are faced with this overwhelming evil, that there's a pushback. And so they're trying to build this world on evil. They're building it on sand. It will eventually, whether it's now or later, wash into the ocean. If we destroy it now, I hope that we can contain the destruction and the fallout, but they can't, it can't continue. It can't maintain down the road that we're going, right?
No. And you know what? Also on a spiritual note on that is Rumi, who's one of the Sufi poets. He talks about how pain and suffering and broken hearts is the light of truth trying to crack its way inside of you to enlighten you, make you wake up. And a lot of people have claimed that the evildoers today are doing God's work. And I would tend to agree with that. I would tend to say that it's all God. Everything is God. Even Lucifer is God. And so humanity is being given an opportunity where we can enlighten ourselves and learn about how our minds work and learn about how we're manipulated.
Exactly.
So that we can avoid that and hold on to our freedom.
Here's the thing. I know how metaphysics work. I know how the universe works. I know how the cow ate the cabbage. If you're not expanding, you're imploding. I can go on air and tell people that Infowars could shut down. And that would be a very true statement. If I don't have the will, Infowars could shut down tomorrow. If I fight as hard as I can and people don't support us, we shut down in a year. You support us and get creative and get fired up, we won't just be here 100 years, we'll be here forever. We'll turn the whole thing around. Our grandchildren on Mars bases and jump bases and God knows what are going to look back and say, you know, we struggled here, we made it. Unlike all these other test cases that God put in place. You know, there's a lot of eggs. We're proud of what we brought you and the whole family of Infowars products, but without you, we won't be here.